In this video, I want to take a look at a game which I played against the Played Magnus app at age 10. I had the black pieces and I'm pretty happy with the way that I played, even if I'm not happy with the result. The game lasted about 3 hours, give or take. And, I was pretty tired by the end, so... And, the end game of Magnus at age 10 is still pretty decent. Although the engine did take about 5 to 10 seconds on a lot of the moves, so I think I did play rather well. So the game started as a Chigorin defense, and I think the opening turned out pretty well for me from my practical point of view, maybe not objectively, but we ended up with a closed position, which is a good thing against engines. Here Magnus played knight c3 and I went for e5. Takes e3. This is all theory. And after knight f5, my opponent played knight f3, which I wasn't very familiar with. Usually most of my opponents play e4 immediately, which I believe is the main line, or maybe it's the old main line. In the database now, most people do play knight f3, so, or maybe that's just what masters prefer, knight f3 instead of e5. So here I was on my own, and I didn't want to commit to bishop d6, so I played f6, but this is already given a pretty big advantage to white. And here Magnus played a novelty, queen b3, which is actually a pretty good move. And now I played bishop d6, although the engine prefers knight d6. But I just wanted to continue my development and not fall behind, because, well, after knight d6, I only have one piece developed, and this diagonal is weak. My position is cramped, and there's 3 pieces developed for white, so that's not what I wanted to play. After e4, well, there is a line where you go for knight d4, but I just decided to go back. And here I was very surprised by this move, bishop d2, which I think is rather passive and just gives me enough time to just not get too cramped or too fall behind in development. I was expecting something like bishop b5 check, so now I just played a6, and I'm stopping that idea. And this move was a little surprising. The engine doesn't like this move. It thinks that it just gives up a lot of the advantage. And here I played b5, which Stockfish really likes. It thinks it's a very good move. The point is, well, there's 2 ideas. I want to go bishop g4, pinning the knight, but obviously that hangs the pawn, so queen can takes. And, well, when you castle on opposite sides of the board, you want to push the pawns, So this is pretty much stopping my opponent from capturing the pawn if I do ever play bishop g4. And I'm preparing to just keep pushing the pawns and open up these files for my rooks, or even this file, the A file as well. So h3, stopping bishop g4. And well, now I need to get this knight into the game, but it's not so simple. If I go knight h6, then the bishop can just take it, and now my pawn structure is terrible. So instead I went knight g6, and now h4, which was very surprising because it's wasting more time. I thought g4 instead was better. And here I went h5 with two ideas. Well, now I can develop the knight to h6, although I may still develop it to e7, but from h6 I can go to g4. And I'm also stopping out my opponent from pushing the pawn and kicking the knight back. And after king b1, knight h6. And well, here there's really no point of taking the knight because I can just take with the rook. And here another rather strange move. I don't like this move at all. a3, I think it's just wasting time. And this is what I meant about the opening being good from my practical point of view, because computers are not very good in these types of closed positions. And well, a3 is just weakening this square, and it's also allowing me to use the thrust with the pawn to open up the b file, because I would be attacking both the knight and the pawn. So I just continued to improve my position with knight g4. There is no immediate need for me to castle because, again, the position is not open. And I was very happy to see this move. When I saw the bishop retreat, I knew that I should be at least slightly better, which Stockfish agrees, and Komodo probably will at some point. So now I castled, and after bishop d3, well, the bishop is finally developed, but it's not really doing much. It's blocked in by the pawn. And now knight f4. Now I'm attacking the bishop and I'm attacking the pawn. And here, well, I was again a little surprised by the move rook f1, which is not really doing anything. I thought maybe it was just a trap to get me to play knight g2, and well, after the bishop goes to d2, eventually, not right now because, well, this pawn would be hanging, but eventually you want to bring the rook here and use this semi-open file to attack my king, which is not something I wanted to experiment with against an engine because, well, technically they're very good. And I'm just double checking and triple checking my calculations because, well, one little mistake can cost you the game. At the same time, if you calculate a very long variation, well, as the saying goes, long variation, wrong variation, but you also don't want to stop your calculation too short, because then you might miss something. And now queen e2, so look at the evaluation now. It's black is obviously better. And well, here I was thinking that at some point, if I want to move this bishop, I need to get the king out of this diagonal, because d6 check would just win the queen in some variations, potentially, because right now I do have queen to f7, but if this pawn wasn't here, then the bishop could come here and, well, I'm just gonna lose the queen. So just get the king out of the way so I don't have to think about that. And now g3, protecting the pawn. And here I decided to capture the bishop instead of going back with the knight, because even though this bishop is not amazing right now because it's blocked in by the pawn, if I ever want to push f5, then this bishop would become very good. So having the pair of bishops, now I have the option of opening up the position, and, well, the bishops are gonna have an advantage. Rook takes, the only move. Bishop d7, knight d2. The idea is you want to kick the knight back with f3. And here the computer likes f5. Now I did consider this move, but again, against a computer you don't really want to open up the position if you don't have to, because after like captures and takes, you can put a knight on e4, and, well, this knight is very good if after those rook moves and the king moves, then the knight can capture the bishop, and I don't really see much of an advantage for black. So I went b4 to open up some files. So takes f3, and here I did consider bishop g4, but it just doesn't work because the knight can just take it. And I did calculate pawn takes, hitting the queen, but it's not working right now. Although I was thinking that maybe it might work at some point. And here, really, the computer just doesn't know what to do, I think, because rook h1. I guess the idea is to push, and after takes, you can push the pawn and have some sort of attack against the king. So now I'm just putting pressure down the B file. And here, now I played a bishop e5, which the engine doesn't like it, but, well, I mean, a5 I considered, but I wasn't sure if the engine was going to play either f4 or g4, and I think I'm just potentially in some trouble because, well, the position is going to start to open up. and I'd rather just simplify the position and not have to worry about getting checkmated. And here I missed this move. I thought knight e3, but this should be winning for black. And you're just gonna win the knight. So this in-between move, bishop takes, is really important. So queen takes is pretty much forced, and here I just missed this move, rook a3, and I can't take because then rook takes and I'm losing material. I considered sacrificing the queen, but against the computer I was a little hesitant, to say the least. Now, if it was a blitz game against a human opponent, maybe I would have played it. So I just traded rooks, and well, after this move, the position is equal, so there goes my advantage. And here, well, I'm threatening to move the queen and push the pawn. And here after this, I was just like, wow, what? I mean, how does the engine get away with playing like 4 or 5 just bad moves, just waiting moves that are not really doing anything, and then just defends like a genius? And I mean, white is slightly better. Here I did consider queen f8 or just some other queen move to try to protect the rook, but I mean, queen f8 just is so counterintuitive. Even though it's the best move, the queen is just not active, or not as active as it was on its original square. And I mean, it's just a difficult move to make. Also, I just wanted to trade queens because, well, I figured maybe I can play the endgame to a draw. And here the best move is to trade queens, but again, another just fancy move. Now usually when humans try to get a little too fancy, it backfires, but this move is actually working out tactically, which is what you would expect. So now we trade queens, and knight f7, rook d1, which is not the best move. Rook c1 was much better. So I just defend the pawn and get my knight to prevent pushing the pawn, and then we have to trade and the rook gets active, because if the rook gets to this square, I don't think I have any realistic winning chances. If anything, I'm praying that I can hold a draw, but already the advantage is getting pretty significant for white. And here, first I considered this move, but after b3 I have to go back, so I figured, well, I'm just gonna go back. And again, another strange move, rook g1. And here, well, the threat is just to check and take the pawn, which my opponent allows. And I was like, is my knight getting trapped? And I tried to calculate it, and no, it's not getting trapped, but you have to find the one move that isn't allows the knight to get back to safety, otherwise you are losing the knight. So check, king c2, only move, takes, and after this move, my opponent played this strange looking move, knight d8, which I completely missed. And here, well, this is an engine line, which I considered this move, but I was like, well, can't you just move the king? But actually, it's working out pretty nicely. If king e3, which is a blunder, then you have this check, and now you're just winning the pawn and saving the rook. Instead, I went for rook a7, which I think it's already lost. I'm gonna lose this pawn, and well, this pawn is just gonna march down the board and win the game. I play knight h2, which arguably is the losing move, but the position was already bad, so knight takes, here rook b7, defending the pawn, and well, now there's really nothing to analyze, because now after this move there's nothing. I'm gonna lose the rook, and that's pretty much the end of the game. So yeah, that's what happens when you play against computers. So thank you for watching. If you like the video, hit the like button and share and subscribe. And thank you for watching.